Now that we are more familiar with the box model, let me just go and change the name of our document here to box model. So at least when you download this, you will be aware of the content of this specific folder for the files that we have done here. And I will be creating a new file for CSS units2.html. So what I want to do here right now is to go and create another template for HTML5, and then I want to rename the title to CSS units part 2. So at least we'll have an idea of the title of our document. Now let's go create two div elements, and then inside of the div element, I would want to go and give this a text of, let's say, pixel, and on the other one will be percentage. And here I would want to have a 100 pixel value, and here 50% div value. Let's go and try to add some style tag here, so at least we can give it a styling for our elements here. So let's have a box, div class box. One other thing that you can remember in doing certain projects, everyone, is that you can actually declare more than just one class name inside of a class declaration here. For an attribute, we can give more than just one class names here. Let's say I want both to have background color of blue. Now let's go and save that, and then try to open our document here. So let's just go and open it up in our file explorer here. So let me just double click on it, and now as I see it here, we can see now that we have two texts for our two div element here. We have two div elements that has the same background color. So if I go and check it out, we have a div here and a div here. Okay, so you would see that we were able to select the two div elements and give those two elements with the same background color as we've declared here using the same class name. One keynote to remember is that we can actually apply more than just one class declaration here. So let's say I would want this to be box green and this one to be box red. I can actually use two class names that will be the value of our class attribute here that we can use as a reference to give separate styling to our elements here. So we have here pixel box green. So let's go and give it a background color green, and let's see what will happen. And here we have box red, and I'm going to use this as a our code declaration for the box red. Now let's go and check what will happen, and if we try to go and refresh it, you would see that the two CSS declarations here was able to override the first class declaration that we made here using the box class name. So we maximize the use of the specific declaration here for the value of box green and box red that is now applied in our CSS in our document here by the browser. So let's go and apply some margin here, so at least we can separate the two boxes. So as I've said in our previous lesson, that's why I tackled the box model. We wanted to see here a bit of space in between the two boxes that we've just created right now. And I would want to go and apply a little bit of padding. At least we also have 20 pixels padding for each of the boxes here. Now let's save that. Okay. Now let's go and apply border here with 5 pixels. So at least we can practice what we've learned in our previous lesson. And you can see that I'm practicing you right now, because again, the best way to mastery will always be practice, and we are reviewing the things that we've learned in the past. So now we can see that we have a border for each of the boxes. And specifically for this lesson, I would want to go and tackle here. The most important part of this lesson will be to apply the absolute length width here. So we identify this as an absolute length. if you remember in our lessons. And here we have another width, but we will be using 50%, which is, if you remember, is a relative length or relative unit. Okay, so we have this, so at least we won't be too confused. Relative unit and absolute unit. So let's save that. Let's see what will happen here. So this will be the size of our boxes that will be displayed by the browser. We know that pixel is an absolute unit that will always have the same length, no matter where it will be in our document. This is what we've talked about in our previous lessons, and if you remember, an absolute length that is fixed will be appearing exactly as that size. As here, as you can see here, this is an exact 100 pixel based from our body of the document, of the body of our document. And here, you will see that based from the viewport, exactly the main size of our document here, it's 50%. Plus the margin and padding that is the default, or the margin and padding that is the default value that has been given by the browser, because we haven't applied any universal reset here for the padding and the margin. Now the next thing that I want to do here is to create another div that I will just consider as a, ignore this because this div is just a separator. Okay, we just want to separate the div here, so at least, and we can also apply the box color here. So if we save that, let's see what will happen here. So ignore this because this div is just a separator from the two documents that we have here. And the other thing that I want to do here is, now I want to copy these two elements here and then place them inside of a container div. So div, again, we can automatically give instructions to the Visual Studio Code here that we want to give a class name. So you just use the period character so that at least it will generate automatically the name that you want to create for your document. So let me just copy this or cut it and place it inside of this. So at least we will have a div container that will have a background color. Let's change the background color of the container here, and so at least we will be able to easily identify what's the container and the box green and box red. So let's have a background color of, let's say, something that will be a little bit gray color here. So let's refresh. As we've talked about the percentage element here that we've created, the div element that contains a percentage value, once we go and try to resize this, you will see that its main percentage will be based from the container that we've created here. But if we go and try to change the width of the container, based from, let's say, the body element. So we want the viewport of this width container here to be 50% of the body of the element. So if I go and try to refresh this, you will now see that the percentage width is relative to the parent element from where it is located. So here it was located in the body element. So it's the child element of the body element, and it based its size, the width size, from the whole viewport of the body document. But when we place the div element that contains a percentage width 50% inside of a container div, it now has the percentage of 50% inside of the container here. So it's no longer basing its width to the body element anymore, because it's now a child element of the container, the div container. I'm hoping you're getting the idea here. So we can see here now that we have the percentage relative unit here that we used for the width, relative length, and it's relative to the parent element, which is the container here. And here we can see that it's a pixel of 100 pixels which is an absolute length. So it doesn't matter if it's outside of the div container, which is inside, and it's a child element of the body element. But when we place it inside of the div container here, it still displayed the same length, which is 100 pixel inside of the div container when it became a child element of the div container. So it's an absolute fixed length value for the width that we have given here based from the 100 pixels value that we have stated in our code. Just to show you that this is an absolute length and an absolute unit that will not be affected by the parent element, which is the div container in this case, let's go and open our code editor and let's change the value of the width here for the box green and turn it into 1000 pixels. So if I'm going to refresh this, you would see that even though the container here, the div container here has now shrunk 50% of the viewport, the pixel here is still 1000 pixels. That means when we gave it a 1000 pixels value here, it occupied the exact space that will be equivalent to 1000 pixels in the viewport of our browser here. I'm hoping that really gave you an idea about the percentage, the pixel and percentage absolute and relative value units, and you will be able to use this now more clearly when you work on your projects. So I'm hoping that was really able to clear out some things here, and it will be helping you maximize the use of both values, just in case that you will be needing to use an absolute value such as pixel, or you will need a relative value such as percentage.